Hey, what's good? Welcome everyone to episode 102. We got an explosive episode coming up right here. Special guest Luke of Moonwell. If y'all been on Twitter, you've seen that we have been retweeting and talk about this all week. We're very excited to get this show on the road. How you doing, Crypto for Change?
Doing good, doing good. Obviously, the markets are giving us some things to stomach this morning with
Yeah.
stocks kind of falling down. Obviously, you got Bitcoin still looking bullish. I will say, it's not no reason for to worry. I think yet, but the markets are exciting. Obviously, if you're in the base ecosystem, markets I think have are literally exciting every single day. The volume on base transaction speeds continue to grow. Fees have remained have remained low for the most part. So it's definitely bullish for all you people out there who are in the base ecosystem. And that is what we are going to be diving a lot into. So get ready for a lot of that alpha that's going to be dropping during this show. But outside of that, I mean, I don't know. I'm still waiting for that big alt rally that I think it could be coming soon, especially with the Bitcoin having just a few weeks away. I don't know. I feel like Bitcoin's gonna have some fireworks. I'm sure we're gonna see some. Bitcoin likes to get on the verge of like, oh, is it going back? It's got to bring out those bears that are calling for like 15, 10K, and then we get that God candle that just says nope, faked you. But I don't know. What are your thoughts right now with what you're seeing?
Well, I see Bitcoin holding 70K solid. The ETF is still, holding up as well. It seems like there's inflows, a little bit of outflows, but the mainstream media looks like they're still liking what they're seeing out of Bitcoin. So, always shout out to Larry Fink. Nah. But otherwise, no, I'm thinking everything is still bullish on my end. Of course, this is part of the process, for those who've been around, I guess, a few years. A little pullback means much. They got
Yeah.
Paris blockchain week right now. So everyone's over there chatting it up about all the new, features on their blockchains, and everyone's excited. It seems like Paris got an event every single week. So they're keeping the hype
Right.
going. But otherwise, yeah, I'm excited to talk to Luke, really. Base is popping, as you said, and we've been diving in deep the last few weeks. So shout out to all the guests who have been on our show to educate our audience about base ecosystem.
Yeah. We obviously we've talked about Aerodrome, Velodrome, the top dexes. Now we're going to be talking about Moonwell, which is one of the top lending protocols right now on base, and the TVL has been growing fast. So yeah, without further ado, let's bring Luke on. Let's start talking about it.
All right, welcome to the show, Luke.
Hey guys, it's great to be here. Base morning or BM to you, as we like
Yeah,
to say
yeah.
sometimes.
Base morning.
Yeah, excited to talk about Moonwell and all things base.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's hop right into it. And first, give the audience just a little bit of brief description of who you are and kind of where your history came from. I know you have some history at Coinbase and creating some of the staking things over there for various chains. So kind of just tell them what got you into the space and where you came from, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good. So, by way of background, my name is Luke Youngblood. I'm a founding contributor at Moonwell. We have a lot of people that contribute to our ecosystem, but I'm one of the first. And let me just give you a bit of my background. I've been working in tech for a couple decades now, and I was working at Amazon Web Services back in the mid 2010s as a principal engineer, and really helping like large customers migrate to cloud. Helped Apple kind of build their iCloud backend, where people store all their photos and music and everything. But at the same time, I was kind of a crypto hobbyist. Like I was early mining Bitcoin on my gaming PC back in like 2011, 2012. And I was just kind of geeking out on this new magic internet money stuff, right?
Did you hold
And
it?
I held some of it,
There we go.
yes.
Okay.
Not all of it.
Hey.
I wish I held more, but
Right.
or I wish I actually bought some. But at the time, it was this fun thing where you could just earn like a few dollars worth of Bitcoin before leaving your computer running at night, right? Of course, it's harder to mine now. But anyway, I've always been a crypto hobbyist and got into Ethereum in the early days too. Like my brother was hacking away on Ethereum back in like 2015, 2016, and yeah, very early. So my brother and I actually started a two-person startup in 2018 called Blockscale, really tiny two-person startup. We were building staking infrastructure. And the reason why we started it was because my brother knew the founders of the Tezos network, and they were about 6 months away from their mainnet launch. And they had a huge team of developers in Paris building like the Tezos node software. and the foundation actually had like 20% of the circulating supply, and so they needed to stake the foundation tokens. So they were about 6 months away from their mainnet launch, and they had a huge team of devs, but they had no idea how to build like staking infrastructure. And they didn't have time to go build a data center or something, 6 months to launch. So they said, like, we need someone that has good AWS experience, like good cloud experience, that can come in and just, build our validators in a very secure way. And so my brother and I kind of jumped at the chance. We started working nights and weekends while I was still at Amazon even. And we were just working crazy hours. We built the Tezos staking infrastructure that the Tezos Foundation runs to this day. And that was a great experience. And then fast forward about a year, Coinbase contacted us and they said, hey, we really want to get into staking rewards. We want to offer this to our custody clients as well as our retail customers, because we think staking is the future. Everything is migrating from proof of work to proof of stake. And so they wanted to hire people that had deep expertise in staking infra. And we had just gone down the rabbit hole for the last year building, really secure systems in the cloud. And so that's how I kind of joined Coinbase. I got acqui-hired by them. Our little 2-person startup got acquired by them, and then went on to build staking at Coinbase. So the first network we launched was Tezos because I had the experience there. But right after that, and I found this really interesting because your community has a lot of Algorand people in it.
We started on Algorand.
Yeah, man. The very next network we added support for in Coinbase custody was Algorand, because you probably remember this back in 2019. When Algorand first launched, there was like the super staking program that was going on. And a lot of the investors in Algorand basically were custodying their algo tokens with Coinbase custody. And we had a really secure cold storage solution, but it's very hard to stake from cold storage, right? Like if you've ever done this before, because usually you keep the keys offline. You can't, sign like a participation message, right? Like I want to participate in staking. So we had to design a custom solution to allow all the Algorand investors that were holding their coins in Coinbase cold storage to stake. And so I had a great experience working with, the guys at PureStake and a whole bunch of other, staking infrastructure companies in the Algorand space. That was the next one we launched.
I know when we first got into Algorand, for most people, if it wasn't the Lex Friedman interview with Silvio Macaulay that got you kind of most people excited about Algorand, it was the staking rewards you could earn on Coinbase. Like they were some of the highest ones when Algorand first launched. So I know that's a big part of why many people started buying Algorand, holding it, and then kind of diving more into that ecosystem. So hats off to you.
That's what got me for sure.
Absolutely. Thanks. That's great to hear. Yeah, and so we were building, staking rewards for Coinbase custody originally, and then we quickly rolled that out to Coinbase retail as well. And there's there's a lot of different engineering organizations inside Coinbase, but the retail organization is different from like the prime and custody institutional focused organization. And so that's why sometimes you see like, you can stake some assets on retail that you can't stake on other parts of Coinbase. But anyways, we added support for Cosmos after that, and then the big
another one of my favorites.
Yeah, the big one that we really spent a lot of time over the last 2 years I was at Coinbase launching was Ethereum. That's the monster, right? Ethereum staking rewards, and we had just acquired Bison Trails, which I don't know if you've heard of them, but they're an excellent staking infrastructure company founded in New York. By Aaron and Joe. But anyway, a great team. They came and joined us, and they supported staking on like, a dozen different layer ones. And so we were able to build Ethereum staking rewards on top of their backend infrastructure, which basically became Coinbase Cloud. So if you use the Coinbase Cloud product today, you're actually using Bison Trails backend infrastructure. And it's really an awesome product because it allows like institutions, and investors to actually, like stake with their large allocations that they have. And we built the retail Ethereum staking rewards product on top of that. And there's a whole bunch of really interesting things about that. Like, for example, we were worried at the amount of scale that Coinbase has, right? With something like over 10% of the network staking. We were worried about things like what happens if a meteor hits like Northern Virginia, where US East 1 is. That's the major AWS region, right? And how much staking supply is going to go offline, and is that going to cause slashing, right? Like, because there's downtime slashing in Ethereum if you're down for too long. So we actually built this system where we distribute the validator nodes, and there's thousands of validator nodes running at Coinbase. We distribute them across about 30 different availability zones in Amazon, if you're familiar with that, in like a dozen different regions. So globally, so basically, and each availability zone has multiple data centers. So you can imagine the staking infrastructure that Coinbase operates is really distributed globally across, dozens of data centers, Asia, Europe, South America. There's really not much staking infra in the US for tax reasons, but in any case, it was an honor to kind of build that. And
yeah, it's got to be a pretty cool, badge of honor to have, even looking back, knowing just, I would assume how big of a giant I would assume Coinbase is going to become. So that's got to be pretty cool to know you've got that, always in your back pocket. Like, hey, I created that.
Yeah. And, it was a village, not just me, but I was the lead engineer on the project. And so, and it also, we had to kind of champion it with the leadership, because it wasn't obvious that this was going to become a, $100 million a year revenue business, or maybe $1 billion a year revenue business for Coinbase in the early days. So we had to champion it with the leadership to get the engineering resources we needed to succeed. But it was great. I spent 3 years there, and then, I got the DeFi bug in 2020, DeFi summer. We can talk about that too if you want.
Oh yeah. I mean, I feel like everybody was. I mean, I come from banking. I did 7-8 years in banking, from credit unions to mortgage to all that stuff. So when I first got into crypto in 2020, I bought Doge. It was the first crypto I ever bought, and I sold it way too early. If I'd have held it, it's still, like today, it would be worth 6 figures if I hadn't sold it. So but I had no idea what any of this was. But then when I found Algorand and I found Ethereum and I started seeing what it could become, I was like, holy cow. And then I started getting into DeFi. I started buying stuff and staking it, putting it everywhere, just because I was like, this is, I just found gold. And then obviously the bear market corrected me on that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think everybody got sucked into DeFi summer.
Yeah, for sure. And my first experience working with DeFi was in like fall of 2019. So we had like a annual hackathon at Coinbase where we would just get to spend like a week building cool new prototypes. They may never see the light of day, but we got a chance to build cool new things with our friends. And at the time, I think it was like October 2019, the Compound team came in to Coinbase HQ in SF, and we were all hacking together for a week on the Coinbase price feed, which was basically the idea we had was, what if we took the price of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and all these assets that are on Coinbase Pro and signed them with like an Ethereum private key that Coinbase owns, and then put them on chain so that people would know like the price data was accurate. It was actually signed by Coinbase. And so we hacked with the Compound team all week. They gave me this T-shirt, 20 shout out to 2019 Compound. And then they used that price feed when they launched in DeFi summer, which I feel like Compound, and maybe Synthetics before that, but Compound was kind of like the catalyst for all the yield farming that was going on in DeFi summer, right? When they launched in like June 2020, I think it was, I was all over that. I was like, wow, this is incredible. I can wrap my Bitcoin, I can supply it on Compound, I can earn comp tokens. And I started just going down that rabbit hole and got really deep on DeFi. I created a Slack group for at Coinbase called DeFi. And that Slack group in 2020, 2021 became there were thousands of people in there. There were as many people as any other Slack channel except for general. And so I think at Coinbase, many millionaires were made in that channel just from people getting alpha on the latest DeFi projects back in 2020, 2021. Yeah. And I just got super deep on it. Yeah. And to this day, that channel still exists after I left Coinbase. But, while I was there, I was working with Jesse Pollock, and he's a great guy. And I really wanted to start launching DAOs at Coinbase. So after, launching staking, I was like, we need to launch a liquid staking DAO. This was my passion at the time. I was like, let's do basically what Lido has done, right? Let's launch a liquid staking DAO. We can tokenize liquid staking assets, and then we can, basically use them in DeFi. But the challenge was that, from a regulatory standpoint and legal standpoint, it'd be super risky for Coinbase to start launching DAOs, right?
Yeah.
And so Jesse at the time was working in this brand new, like kind of an incubator within Coinbase that was working on like, how do we launch DAOs at Coinbase? And he was like, come work in my org. We'll figure out a way to launch DAOs at Coinbase, but you got to be patient with me while I get the lawyers on board, right? The legal team on board.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to his credit, so, you know, I actually left to launch Moonwell back in late 2021, early 2022. But to his credit, what Jesse has done is a masterstroke, is genius, because by creating Base, he's created a way that all of us Coinbase alumni can actually launch DAOs on Base as a layer 2.
Yeah.
And now Coinbase can actually integrate with them in a more safe way, right? Because, you know, Coinbase is a regulated US company. They can't really launch DAOs, but other projects like Moonwell, can launch DAOs, and then Coinbase can integrate with them and bring all of the great like Web3 products that are on Base to their retail customers. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Can you give a quick history of Base launching, and for those who don't know?
Sure, absolutely. So about a year ago, I think it was maybe March of last year, Coinbase first announced Base as a layer 2 on Ethereum. And when we heard about this, we were like, we've got to be there day one. We've got to launch Moonwell day one, because it's just going to be too important of an ecosystem to ignore. And so all of last spring and summer, you know, the Base team was hard at work. They launched their testnet, Base Go Early, and we were experimenting on the testnet all summer. At the same time, the Moonwell, we were actually going through like a redesign of our product, and we engaged with Vector DAO. So Vector DAO is like an incredible DAO full of designers and artists and, you know, brand consultants, and they built this beautiful Moonwell V2 design, like the design you see in the app today.
Yeah, it's
changed
a good bit, because when I first found Moonwell, it was when you guys had built on Moonbeam, and, you know, it was the kind of the galaxy background and everything like that. Like I remember all, you know, staking and doing everything over there, and then I actually enjoyed the upgrade that you guys did once you launched on Base. So I think hats off to that.
Thank you. Yeah, and so we really wanted to create a user-friendly experience, because we realized, like, hey, Coinbase is going to be bringing tens of millions of users from retail in this incredible retail funnel they have to Base. We want to be just as easy to use as possible. We want to be translated into multiple languages, so the people that live in South America, Asia, Africa can use our product. And we thought, like, this is going to be the future. So we went through this incredible redesign, and then we were there live on day one when Base mainnet launched August 9th. We're the first lending protocol, I think, to launch day one, and we were just all in on the Base ecosystem, and that was an incredible summer. We put a lot of effort into building a cross-chain governance solution called temporal governance that allows us to govern the Base deployment of Moonwell from the Moonbeam governor, where we originally launched, and that was a piece of tech that we open sourced as a public good, you know, and we actually received an Optimism grant in the latest Retro PGF 3 for building temporal governance. And we've now, you know, kind of built a lot of additional governance infrastructure that it's open sourced as well, and we're gonna be part of like the Retro PGF 4 as well. Because now we actually have, you know, like multi-chain governance where people can vote, stake on Base. We've really invested heavily into that. So, you know, it's been an honor kind of to build alongside the Base team and to see how amazing they're executing. I mean, you know, for those of us that have been through many cycles and have seen like layer 1s, layer 2s launch, they had all the right infrastructure pieces in place to make it a success on day one, which is really rare to see. You know, things like Etherscan, things like Gnosis Safe, you know, subgraphs, all of the kind of like back-end infrastructure thing that builders need to actually like launch a new protocol or launch a new project is there on Base like day one, which is really amazing.
Yeah, I will say this. I mean, just from what I've noticed being, you know, in the space since 2020 and just seeing the last run, obviously the bear market and now this run, I mean, obviously there's, you know, chains that have hype, but there's very few chains that have Jesse Pollock, and he, like, that guy's infectious. I've been trying to get him on our show, and maybe as we continue to have more projects from Base, he'll be able to. But he's obviously a busy guy. But yeah, the team that's working at Base is doing a great job with just keeping the focus on developers, making sure they're satisfied, making sure they're excited, making sure they're able to grow with the grants. Like I even know Algorand right now is actually looking to change their governance model to become more like optimism's, like, retro style of funding. To, if you build something, if you build a public good on, something on chain that's a public good for the ecosystem, you will get rewarded. Like, that's the whole thesis. And I think a lot of other chains are going to follow in Base's footsteps there, instead of just doing what I feel like happened last time, which was foundations and things were just shilling out money, and then things maybe got built, maybe they didn't, maybe they went and just spent all the funds on whatever they wanted to spend them on. But I think Base is really positioning themselves to capitalize on just the flood of people who are going to come into the space. And something I'm actually excited about, I don't know if you want to go ahead and jump into it, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on the new embedded wallets, because I think that's something as well that's going to play right into the hands of protocols like Moonwell, Aerodrome, various projects that are being built that, the normie is it has to be easier, right? They can't have all the other, confusing things maybe that we had last, bull run. So if you want to talk a little bit about the embedded wallets, that would be amazing.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that I'm super excited about and should be coming to mainnet very soon. I've heard it's coming in weeks rather than months, which is super exciting. But so the smart wallet that Coinbase is building right now, there's an amazing demo. You can try it out if you want. You can just go to smart-wallet.xyz on your mobile phone, Google or iOS, and try it out. It's pretty incredible because within seconds, you can create a passkey, is what it's called, which is a brand new kind of encryption technology, private key that's supported by Apple and Google devices. That passkey is secured by your biometrics, like your Face ID or your fingerprint. And then once you create that passkey, you've basically created a wallet that Coinbase manages the private keys for with multi-party computation. So a lot of technical things happening behind the scenes to kind of secure your private key. And that passkey that's on your phone now can basically sign transactions just like any other wallet, like MetaMask or Coinbase Wallet, right? So you never need to download an app anymore, right? Users that are coming onto Base apps for the very first time can basically just browse to Moonwell or Aerodrome or any of the other excellent projects and on their phone, and then they can create a wallet in seconds. They don't have to worry about backing up their seed phrase, downloading MetaMask, anything like that. And so that's a game changer, I think, because that has been one of the biggest points of friction for like normal people that want to use crypto and DeFi for the first time, right? It's like, okay, you've got to set up a wallet, you've got to back up your seed phrase. If you screw it up, you lose all your money, right? Like,
yeah, I
that's
remember
just a really painful experience. Yeah,
I remember hosting workshops, and it was the same thing, like handing a piece of paper at everybody, send them a little crypto. That was a lie, but I always dreamed of this right here. Just open the iPhone and let it do its thing. So that's going to be huge.
And even with that, you still have the whole, like, I think about like Coinbase users, right? Like, they're going to be able to have these embedded wallets to where, like, you kind of see it now where, like, if you go to the Learn tab on Coinbase, it'll walk you through the steps of like how to earn some money and how to do some NFTs and how to do some DeFi. But it seems like it's going to be 10 times easier than even that process for onboarding those type of people, right?
Absolutely. And I think where Coinbase really gets it right is that they have different solutions for different levels of experience, right? So for example, if you're more experienced at DeFi, you might just use Coinbase Wallet on your mobile phone, and they have like an embedded browser inside Coinbase Wallet. So you're browsing in a secure environment. You're not going to have like some Chrome extension that's going to like steal all your coins, right? So that's an option for like more experienced people to just use Coinbase Wallet and then use all the great apps on Base. But then the smart wallet, I feel like, is going to bring in, exponentially more users because they won't have to figure that out. Like, how do I back up my seed phrase and all of that stuff? What app do I download to do this? And so I think that's just going to, broaden the funnel from, the tens of thousands of users we have using DeFi and Base today to, potentially millions and then eventually a billion, as Jesse says. And There's another really awesome feature that's part of this embedded wallet, the smart wallet, that I think is going to be game changing, and it's called Magic Spend. Have you guys heard of that?
I have not.
Let me
Oh
let me
wait,
pull
is it
that
like
up.
is it like a Coinbase Pay? Like, is that what you're talking about in something like
So
that?
yeah, so Magic Spend is this feature that's going to be part of the smart wallet where so you can just use a smart wallet without a Coinbase account if you want to. It's open to everyone in the world. It's decentralized, just like DeFi is, right? But if you link it to your Coinbase account, if you choose to, it's optional. Now you can see your Coinbase balances as if they were ERC20 tokens in your wallet. So if you have Ethereum on Coinbase, Bitcoin, whatever it is, you'll be able to actually, with like 1 or 2 clicks, deposit that into a DeFi protocol on Base directly from Coinbase. And then behind the scenes, what Coinbase is doing is they're using a paymaster, which is a new type of smart contract that'll actually pay your gas fees for you. So users that are like, hey, I've got this
Like, you
token
got
on
me excited.
Coinbase,
Yeah.
and I want to like supply it in DeFi. I want to LP into some protocol. They'll be able to do that in a couple clicks, and then behind the scenes, Coinbase will pay your gas fees for you to do the deposit with their smart wallet.
Dang.
Oh, Coinbase is ready.
I mean,
that's huge.
that's the next thing too. You have to think, like, in my mind, if you're really gonna like blow people's minds and get the masses to want to try this stuff out. Obviously, last time, like, that's the reason why I chose Algorand, is because I found Ethereum first, but then the fees and everything was so slow and too high. I didn't want to mess with it. Like, who wants to buy a token and spend $50 when the fee is 25 or 30? Like, no one's ever going to do that. And if they're just new to something, but you're telling me if you can get a Coinbase account, you can experiment in DeFi, you can, add LP, you can swap tokens, and even the fee could be 0, or, I even saw that for a short period, maybe a month ago, if I was sending ETH using the base chain to my Coinbase wallet, there was no fee. It was completely covered by Coinbase in doing so. And I think that is going to be that's going to be huge to onboarding and getting a lot more liquidity into some of, a chain like Base. And the whole super chain idea is maybe you don't have to even think about fees, right? Or the goal would be they're so cheap that it's a penny, like Base is currently.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, today you can actually withdraw funds directly from Coinbase to Base without paying any fees. Coinbase is basically paying the gas. So if you want to withdraw USDC or ETH directly to Base, you can do it for free from the Coinbase app. So that is creating like this massive liquidity on ramp. If you just look at Coinbase's like quarterly filings for their stock filings, right? You can see how much crypto they hold on their balance sheet for customers. Well, it's not balance sheet crypto, but they disclose like how much they're custodying, and it's billions of dollars of crypto, right? And all of that is going to basically
crypto as well. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, they're custodying the ETFs as well. But if you think about like how much crypto is actually held on Coinbase, because people trust that it's the most secure and trustworthy exchange, and then all of that is going to have a really easy on ramp to Base. So I could definitely see this cycle Base getting to 10, 20, 30, 40 billion TVL very rapidly. Yeah. And blowing past that too.
The one thing that's interesting, and I don't think we really had this as a question, but before we take our ad break, I just kind of want to poke your mind and see. The only thing that's different, because the one thing I compare it to is maybe looking in the past, is obviously Binance and what they did with Binance Smart Chain, and because they were obviously the largest exchange, and then they created their own chain, but they had a token for it, right? The only thing, the big difference that you see with Base is it doesn't have a token, right? I mean, and I don't know, what are your thoughts around the whole idea of Base not having a token, and is that even more bullish? Or what are your thoughts there?
So I will say that like there's disadvantages to not having a token. I totally understand why they don't. Probably the legal team said like it's too risky for us to have a token, but there are advantages to having a token. Like if you look at Optimism and Arbitrum, right? They're able to give out grants in the token to projects like ours that are trying to attract liquidity and users, and that can really help kind of boost your liquidity and bring in a lot of new users to your product if you're able to get a grant and like distribute that to your users. So there are disadvantages, but Coinbase is actually working around some of those disadvantages in different ways. So for example, even though there's no Base token, Circle, the stablecoin company that builds USDC, is piloting some USDC marketing incentives. And so projects like Moonwell actually have, if you go to like supply USDC on Moonwell today, you'll notice you're earning USDC rewards. And so that's a pilot product or project from Circle to actually give out USDC incentives to protocols to help attract new users and liquidity.
Yeah.
And so that's one. And then the other thing that I think Coinbase can do to kind of like help their ecosystem is really like this whole thing around helping builders with the new infrastructure like paymasters. So for example, if you're and this is where I think Jesse and the team have done a masterful job of attracting builders like us, is that if you're a brand new dev in the space and you want to launch like a new, project on Base, you can actually go to Coinbase Cloud. You can get a free node to talk to, like a Base RPC to talk to, so you don't have to pay for, Alchemy or some RPC service. And you can also get a paymaster with 0.25 ETH just to start, and they'll give you more if you're successful. But basically, you can connect that up to your project and pay all the gas fees for your users to start, bootstrapping your community. And so I think having like free gas or sponsored gas, and allowing your users to not have to pay any fees, is going to be another way they can hopefully attract the best devs and builders in the space. And then that will also bring in, all the users as well, with just great user experience. Yeah. But I also think they're working on other things, like for example, Optimism. They've acquired a huge stake in OP tokens, right, through their partnership with Optimism. And so I do think that Coinbase is going to figure out ways to maybe give out OP grants and things like that to projects. I don't know all the plans there, but I would imagine that that's their path to like basically having a token, even without having.
I mean, I know.
No, I'll say I see it like we were talking about earlier. Ethereum was very expensive, but now with that new Base upgrade, it's smooth. We here at the Next Block have been using Base a lot because of that, and it's kind of like crazy. So like things like Algorand are still great, but we do know most of the market share is still on Ethereum, and then Base had just slid right in at the perfect time, I feel like, as well.
Yeah, and even looking at the whole, and since I know when we talked to Alex from one of the core contributors to Aerodrome and Velodrome, he was even saying, Base doesn't have a token, but that honestly gives reason to believe that maybe a token like an Aerodrome, maybe something like a Moonwell could become this Base, kind of token that people trade in and out of, because it becomes this, I won't say store value, because, that's a touchy subject there, but it could become the OP, the ARB token, what those are, because the value is there, because they take a lot of that market share in the network that's growing. And so we're going to take a quick ad break, but audience, we are going to dive on the second half of the show deeper into Moonwell itself. We're going to talk about some of their things that they're doing with USDC, launching USDC anywhere, as well as some other cool things that they have for their roadmap coming with their V2 launch. So stay tuned right after these ads.
Hey, welcome back, everyone. We're sitting here with Luke of Moonwell, and this is episode 102. Want to say a big shout out to our sponsors. You see them at the bottom of the screen: Non-Fungible Domains, Exit Market, and then Gora. So, Luke, let's dive back into Arrow. Get your comments back on there, and then we'll jump over to Moonwell.
Yeah, you said something really incredible right before we broke for the commercial about Aerodrome. I caught your conversation with Alex. It was a great podcast the other day. And I actually agree with Alex from the Aerodrome. He's an Aerodrome contributor. I agree with his assessment that Arrow could become like the base token. If you understand the solidly like tokenomics and how it works, and how like projects are able to kind of like vote for and build protocol on liquidity and direct Arrow emissions towards the DEX markets that they want to direct them towards. It's created this really powerful flywheel where protocols like ours can build protocol owned liquidity, and then we can vote for our pool on Aerodrome, and then we don't have to use our own token as much to incentivize the pool because we're able to, incentivize that with Arrow tokens essentially. And so you can imagine Arrow kind of being this token that can kind of like incentivize attracting tons of liquidity to Base. And because Coinbase actually acquired a large stake in Arrow, Coinbase Ventures can actually direct their voting power towards different pools for different projects. So if they have a new project they want to help succeed and build liquidity, Coinbase could actually vote for that pool on Aerodrome and basically put incentives on that pool without actually having to like drop a token, which is really incredible. And we've been a launch partner with Aerodrome since day one. We were part of the flight school. We are really impressed with all the things they're doing. They're just an incredible team, incredible product. They've actually made Solidly like super easy to use. They have one of the most beautiful front ends I've seen in the DEX space. And so we're just super stoked. Also, the Moonwell, I don't know if you've seen, but like they have these things called relayers. Relayer is basically just like a smart contract you can deposit your VE NFTs in, your VE Arrow NFTs, and then it votes on your behalf. But the Moonwell relayer, we were one of the first, if not the first team to launch a relayer in partnership with Aerodrome. And we have over 5.5 million Arrow voting power voting for our pool. So that's why you see the high APRs on Well ETH pools, because we have so much of our community voting power, our protocol and liquidity we've been building since day one. And so that allows us to, really attract TVL with 3-digit APRs without having to incentivize with a lot of our own token.
Yeah, and it's
incredible
huge.
product.
Yeah, it really does help, especially for new projects, not trying to, to incentivize, not having to dilute their own token. They can actually reward people in a token that, the entire ecosystem sees as value. And I don't know if you missed, guys, if you did miss that conversation with Alex from, core contributor of Aerodrome and Velodrome, check out our YouTube channel. It was just a couple weeks ago. It was a great talk. It's like an hour and 10 minutes. So a lot of alpha that was in that one as well. And I definitely agree. And I'm a big believer in Aerodrome and Velodrome and that whole super chain idea of just, concentrated liquidity. Slipstream is already on Velodrome as well. I think that just got implemented. I think Aerodrome's is happening very soon if it hasn't already. And I think you're going to see, I personally believe that we will see Aerodrome and Velodrome, that whole tandem, compete against the likes of a Uniswap. We've seen a lot of attempts and nothing has dethroned Uniswap, but I my hat is right now being placed on Aerodrome and Velodrome that could happen. And if that happens, it's bullish for the entire Base ecosystem, especially something like, you guys at Moonwell. You guys have a lot of stake there as well. And it's only going to help grow your all's ecosystem even better in this bull run.
For sure. I definitely agree. I think they're going to flip Uniswap someday. It's going to be amazing to see.
And we'll be the ones that can look back on this video and say we were there. So let's jump into Moonwell, though, and let's talk about some of the features that you guys are building out. I don't know where you want to start. Obviously, I know you guys have you can launch USDC anywhere. If there's other cool features you want to kick off with, go that route. But I'll hand it back off to you.
Got the website queued up, too, if you want to point out anything or just show them.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about USDC anywhere, because I feel like that's the most impactful feature we've launched in the last few months. So we've been building this for maybe the last 6 months or so. Circle launched this feature called Cross-Chain Transfer Protocol last fall. If you're familiar with it, what it basically allows you to do, they launched it because of a few reasons. First of all, bridges are really insecure. in general, there's been a lot of hacks and losses from bridges like Multi-Chain and Nomad and others, right? So in general, like they saw that people were wrapping USDC in these bridges and then using wrapped USDC on other networks. And if the bridge got hacked, everyone lost all their coins, right? So it was a really bad experience for USDC users. And so what they wanted to do is create a native minting capability where Circle basically can mint native USDC on all these networks now. And they support like 6 different Ethereum networks, as well as Cosmos and Solana. And so they just launched Solana support last week. But basically, we saw this feature, cross-chain transfer protocol, and we thought, this is perfect because we can build a cross-chain lending of USDC, and we can support all these networks without actually having to like launch Moonwell on all these networks. And so we support the top 6 Ethereum networks: Mainnet, Optimism, Base, and then we also support Arbitrum, and then other L1s, Avalanche and Polygon today. So the top like layer 1, layer 2 networks on Ethereum, you can now supply and borrow USDC to any of those networks. And why is this important? Well, I think a lot of us have kind of experienced this challenge where you want to try a new app or a game or buy an NFT collection on a different chain, and you don't have any ETH or any USDC on that chain. And so you end up like trying to figure out, okay, I got to bridge my coins from point A to point B. What bridge do I use? Is it safe? Am I going to get rugged? And so all of that kind of is a really big pain point when you just want to use an app on like Arbitrum or something, right? And so what USDC Anywhere allows you to do is basically, simply supply USDC if you want to lend it from any of those networks, and within a few minutes it'll be on base, and you can just simply earn an interest for lending it out, or you can borrow USDC to any of those networks. So if you have ETH, or like if you're just comfy staking your ETH and you're lending it on Moonwell, you can borrow a few USDC to try out like a new game, like Parallels, the trading card game, or whatever you want to try. You could just borrow some USDC to the network. And then we also integrated with Socket, which is a really awesome team. Socket basically has a network of relayers on all these networks, and so they will basically pay for the mint transaction for you. So it's like a 40-cent fee that Circle charges for the mint, and the relayers basically pay the gas to like mint it to your wallet automatically. And then if you don't have gas on one of those chains, like let's say it's a new network like Optimism you've never used before, and you don't have ETH to actually pay the gas, we'll look at the balance of your wallet on that chain, and we'll say like, okay, you don't have any ETH. We're going to turn on this feature called Refuel that Socket offers, where we basically send a little bit of ETH along with your USDC, so that when your USDC arrives, you can actually do a few swaps or do a few things before you run out of gas.
Dang.
Because that's also a pain point that I've experienced. I'm sure you've had that happen. You bridge to another chain, and then you don't have gas, and you're like stuck, and now you're like, oh man, I got to go to a central exchange and buy some tokens.
Or you accidentally make the mistake of like, oh, I just swapped all of the the gas token into something else, and then you can't do anything else because you don't have any gas. You don't have anything to pay the fee. So yeah, that's an issue I've done. Even on Algorand, I've done that. Especially if you have like, certain, on Algorand specific, it has like where if you are locked in a contract, right, and some of your algo is in your wallet, but you can't actually use that because it's in a smart contract. And it's like, you don't really know where that actual level is, where if you go below it, you can't go below it. And so like, I've run into that so many times where I'll do a transaction, I'll move, max, I'll just hit max on my wallet without thinking about it. And then I go back and I'm like, oh shoot, now I can't do anything. I got to go buy more algo on Coinbase, send it over before I can even do a transaction. So that is really bullish. And again, hats off to you guys, because that is another friction point that, these are the things that have to happen for new people to want to dive deeper. Like they don't want all the pain points because that's enough right there. If someone sends something to make them want to put their phone down and come and try it later. Like, but if they know that once it gets there, oh, hey, I got some USD, I can still do a few things here and test it out. It keeps them engaged. Like you got to remove those friction points and pain points.
And I'll add too, because like with Algorand, a big friction or pain point is they have this opt-in feature where you, like David was talking about, you have to hold algos to be able to opt into a new asset. And what I like about ETH, you can just send it over. You don't have to worry about that whole point there.
You know, I was going to ask you a quick question since you did say you were had your hand in Algorand staking on Coinbase. I believe that was a huge reason why, because Circle has been launching, all of their programs on, now Solana recently, and a lot of people in the Algorand community have said, like, have been tweeting at them like, hey, why aren't you guys like including Algorand in this? Like, it should be easy. Like, especially even looking at Coinbase, like, why don't they accept USDC on Algorand? And I think maybe some of that was the opt-ins, and that's the reason for it. I don't know if you have any knowledge as to why Coinbase never really accepted USDCA or why they still don't. But I know it's kind of outside the subject, but I know a lot of our audience might appreciate it if you had an answer.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can tell you, oftentimes, Coinbase, they will support like a layer 1 token like Algo, but that doesn't necessarily mean they have support for all of the tokens on Algo, right? Like the equivalent of ERC20 on Algorand. And so that is a big engineering lift for them to also support tokens in addition to like the native assets. So they often don't. But I think we could actually, if Circle builds CCTP to Algorand, we could actually support Algorand USDC holders actually supplying directly to Moonwell, which I think would be awesome.
Let's do it.
And with USDC Anywhere, all that liquidity basically flows into Base. And so Base kind of becomes your on-chain liquidity hub, which I think a lot of people would prefer because, it's like, it's operated by Coinbase. It's a trusted exchange. You don't have to necessarily worry about having your coins spread across like a dozen different networks. And then once you have it there, of course, you can borrow against it, do whatever you want, play in the Base ecosystem. And so I think it's, we're really excited about adding support for, Cosmos, Solana, Algorand, and all the other places that have USDC. And just making, Base be this liquidity hub where we can, attract the best USDC liquidity.
Yeah, I definitely think, I mean, it's obvious right now, if you still don't accept it, it's going to happen. Like the future of blockchain is multi-chain. Like these chains, they have to be able to speak to you have to be able to move money and value friction, without friction across them, fast, cheap, all those things. And so I definitely think that, Base is, like I say, it's positioning itself well to be, that kind of onboard and maybe even offboard from various other chains, kind of like, hub and spoke model types thing. So yeah, super bullish on that. What else, what else are you excited about, over at Moonwell with your all's V2 launch now? I know you guys got the native well token. I just did, I went through the whole process the past couple days of, using the wormhole thing to get my native or my well that was on Moonbeam and now to the native well. So I'm all with the new token. So, what else are you guys excited about over there?
So you're starting to see the vision of this in the Moonwell app a little bit. If you recall, like we used to have a network dropdown where you would select like which network do you want to be on, Moonbeam or Base or Moonriver, and you could kind of choose like, okay, I'm on this network now. I can use the assets on this network, right? But the vision we really see is that all these networks are going to fade away, and it's not going to be important what network you're on. So, for example, like the internet today, if you're on Verizon and your friend is on AT&T, like you don't really have to think about like, oh, you're on a different network, I can't talk to you, or I can't like send you text or whatever. It just all works, right? You can use apps, you can talk to people no matter what mobile carrier or internet provider they use. And so I think that's going to be what happens in crypto as well, is like all these networks are going to fade away into the background. And so we've actually removed, since we launched USDC Anywhere, we've removed that network dropdown, and you can basically just go to the markets page. You can see all the markets if you want. And I tweeted about this, I have a thread about networks. If you look at like my highlighted tweets on my profile, you can read that thread, and it really talks about like the vision we have is that value is going to start to flow between these networks using protocols like CCTP, the Circle Transfer Protocol. It's going to start to flow between these networks, just like data flow between early internet networks, right? Like in the early days of the internet, you might be on an office LAN and your friend's on a school LAN. You couldn't send email to each other. And then we got the internet, we connected all these LANs together, and now we can send email and data to each other, no matter where you are. And so the same thing is going to happen with Web3, with all these crypto networks, but it's going to be like the internet of value, right? And now we can transfer value from point A to point B. And for users that are just using an app like Moonwell or Aerodrome, they shouldn't have to think about like, what network am I on? Oh, I can't do that from here, right? They should just be able to send and receive value. They should be able to use all the apps on like Web3. and not really have to think about it. And this is all going to fade into the background. That's kind of the vision we have of just making things user friendly. This is sort of like, you know, moving from dial up to broadband. You've got to make it user friendly for people. And then, you know, moving from broadband to like mobile, like where, you know, you don't even need a computer anymore. You just need a phone, right? So we've got to make, we've got to evolve and make it easy. Yeah.
So it's about where they can essentially, we just go to a website, feel comfortable, and then whatever network we end up on, we're using, and we could do what we need to do.
Exactly. That's the vision we have, is like just making this easy, because, you know, that's how we're going to bring, you know, the next billion people on chain, right? With Jesse's vision. And so there's some other really cool things we've been doing in that regard. Is like, we've been really heavily focused on translating our application into as many languages as possible. And we have dozens of contributors out there in the Moonwell community that are translating our app. We have 5 languages supported today, of course, English. We noticed this was a pain point, that like most DeFi apps are only in English.
Yeah.
And so if you speak Spanish, you live in South America, which is a huge area of growth for DeFi and for crypto in general. Like you might not be able to use our app unless you speak English. So we now support Spanish, Portuguese. We have a really strong community in Brazil. In fact, 2 of our devs are in Brazil. Nice. And then we also support Korean and Mandarin Chinese. And
all
so
the big markets,
we're gonna,
for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to be expanding this to, I think we have people working on translations for German, Italian, Russian right now, Vietnamese. We just have a lot of really awesome contributors in our community that can come in, and, you know, we can give them all the text in our app in like a file, and then they can translate that into their native language, and then we load it into our app, and now we support that language.
Yeah, that's huge too. Like I say, it's all about removing these friction points and pain points that we kind of saw with the last DeFi summer, and how and where those pain points kind of came to the surface. And like I said, it definitely seems like you guys are making the right moves. There was one question before it fades out of my chat here from Kevin. Which other layer 2s would be interesting for Moonwell? Are there plans for new token utilities except staking / governance? And what do you think, or what do you think? How high will base TVL be this cycle? So a little speculation.
Some great questions. That one. yeah, no, some great questions. I mean, let me just take the last one first. I mean, my guess is that base TVL gets to 50, 100 billion this cycle. That's just a guess, though. I mean,
and we're at what, 4 right now? Like 4 billion?
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to predict how crazy things are going to get, but, you know, you guys have been through a couple cycles, so, you know, I think especially with the retail on-ramp, you know, it could go nuts. But anyway, yeah, so let's talk about other L2s, and let's talk about the super chain, because I think that's a topic your guests are really interested in. So I think, you know, we're in the second half of this year, we're probably going to consider expanding to other L2s, and Optimism is probably top of list, just given the strong alignment between base and Optimism. But the super chain might make it so we don't need to, and here's why. Because I've been learning a little bit about the super chain, and I'm going to give you guys some alpha, your audience some alpha here.
Hey, let's drop
about how the tokens are going to work on the super chain, right? Because this is the holy grail of interoperability between layer 2s that are Optimism stack, right? So think about it this way. Today, if I want to bridge a token from like Optimism to base, it takes about 20 minutes or more, because I have to like wait for Ethereum finality, like for the Optimism transaction to settle, and then once the finality happens on Ethereum mainnet, like now I can, you know, mint this token on base or something. So it's like a 20+ minute process. It's kind of painful. It takes too long. But what they're building with interoperability is the ability to do general message passing between different OP stack layer 2s, so that we can have, you know, very fast communication, secure communication between these different OP stack layer 2s. And that's what enables the minting capabilities that like Circle uses for CCTP and other tokens. Like we use that for Well. When you transfer your Well from like Moonbeam to base, we actually, you know, burn it on, or, you know, lock it in a lockbox on Moonbeam, and then you sign an attestation that you've burned this token on one network, and then you're able to kind of like mint this token on the other network once you can prove this attestation to Circle, or to, in our case, it's, you know, to multiple different bridge providers. But that's the way that you kind of move USDC from network to network, is you kind of like provide this attestation to the Circle minting service saying, I burned this thing, please let me mint. Yeah. Okay, so because of that 20-minute finality, that's what takes so long, because, you know, Circle's going to wait until it's really final. They don't want it to be they don't want the transaction to be rolled back or reverted, right? So what the super chain is going to allow is this very fast, secure message passing between the different OP stack layer 2s, so that now we can mint and burn within seconds. And so what you'll be able to do is simply take your OP tokens and transfer them back and forth between Base, Optimism, Zora, Mode, all of the different L2s within seconds. And then any token that's on any of those L2s, you'll be able to do the same thing with. So that's kind of how you, for example, like people are probably enjoying all the meme coins and trading them on Base right now, right? But like they should be able to trade those on Optimism and Mode and all these other layer 2s.
That's one thing I've noticed. That's one thing I've noticed. Obviously, I do dabble in the meme coins, so I hold my fair share of those community tokens. And when I first started seeing Base explode, I had bought like I was like, oh well, maybe Optimism's next. So I bought like one meme coin that was already on Optimism. I think it was like the only one at the time. And you've not seen that explosion, right? You see the almost similar to what Solana had that Base is doing now, but you haven't really seen that take effect on Optimism. I mean, you've even seen Aerodrome and price just rocket to the moon, and Velodrome is kind of still lagged behind, even though it's doing as much volume and doing as many great things. But you're not seeing that ability to just those tokens to be moved back and forth from all these different networks. So that is some alpha right there. I'd be excited to see that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and that's what I think is going to be really killer, because tokens will be the first thing. They'll be able to transfer back and forth within seconds. So you'll be able to trade any token that's on the super chain on any like layer 2 on the super chain. But then also protocols like Moonwell can leverage that general message passing feature to build like some cool cross-chain utility and things like that. And I'm not sure how we're going to use it at first, but we use these general message passing layers right now, for example, to collect votes on Base, send them back to our governor on Moonbeam. We pass governance proposals down to Base, and people can vote on them on whatever network they're on. And so there's going to be a whole bunch of like cross-chain applications that are built similar to that, where they leverage this message passing feature to kind of like make their app multi-chain across, or kind of be live on the entire super chain at once. And I think it's going to be really awesome to see what people build. We just haven't had this capability before. Yeah, it's very similar to like, I guess I'd compare it to Cosmos, like with IBC, if you're familiar with that, like the way that Cosmos zones can kind of like send tokens back and forth within seconds.
It makes it so easy in the wallet. It's like one, like you said, super chain essentially.
One thing that I'm interested to see what, speaking kind of the optimism side, and because I saw that Velodrome announced that they were like partnering with BOB, like build on Bob, I think is what the name of it was, or whatever. Pretty much like
build on Bitcoin.
It's built on Bitcoin. I think maybe that's what it is. But it's almost like helping liquidity in that layer 2 networks, ecosystem. So it'll be really interesting to see if this whole super chain can truly be the place where like Bitcoin lives, Ethereum lives, like where all these assets live and are traded and move between all of these layer 2s. And then obviously then you have cool things that could be built even on top of there. I know the layer 3, the first layer 3 I heard of was the DGen chain that kind of it's a bunch of meme coins right now that are pretty much launched on it, so not financial advice there, but it still just kind of shows the creativity that can kind of spur from having the ability to move these things across ecosystems cheap, fast, and not having to truly worry about some of the pain points. I will say, and it'll be interesting to see how they but improve upon like the 7-day period. Because I know if you bridge to some of the, like you go to the DGen chain on layer 3, it's like you can get there pretty quick, but then getting back takes the full 7-day thing with OP stack. So that'll be an interesting thing to see it worked out.
Yeah, I think that for L3s like DGen, which is really awesome to see their launch. I'm a big fan of Farcaster. I've been dabbling in Farcast the last few months, and frames are incredible. Like I can think of a million cool things we could do with frames. For example, like we could just let people vote in governance in a frame,
right?
So that they can just do it right from Farcaster or Warpcast. They don't actually have to like use our app to vote.
Yeah.
But I'm really excited about the layer 3s, and I think these layer 3s like DGen are going to actually tie into the super chain, so they'll be able to do this faster value transfer. So you don't have the 7-day unbridging period. 7 days is a long time to wait for like the optimistic finality on Ethereum mainnet. But there's a lot of third-party bridges like Bungee.exchange that are really great for getting your coins in and out if you want to go faster.
Yeah.
So it's not the end of the world, but yeah, I could see Farcaster and like Degen and all these L3s, you know, integrating into the super chain so that we can transfer value back and forth between L2 and L3 faster as well.
Yeah, and also everybody in the audience, if you don't know what Farcaster is, Warpcast is, you don't know what frames are, go watch last week's episode. Me and Sewell just spent a full hour just literally going through Warpcast, showing you guys what frames are, how you can interact with them. Like I'm surprised there's not more developers from other ecosystems. Maybe they just don't know about it, but it just seems like there's so many cool things that could be built in, you know, Farcaster with frames and in things like Warpcast. I mean, honestly, it's like Warpcast is what I thought Twitter, you know, when Musk took over and named it X, and said, you know, there was all the hype that, you know, token, you know, crypto is going to be incorporated into it and tipping and all these things. That's what I was expecting X to do, but Warpcast has literally just like kick the door down and like, here it is, like, you know, have fun, build, like, I don't know, the energy over on Warpcast and Farcaster is electric. So I've really enjoyed seeing a lot of the cool things there.
Yeah, Dan Romero and the team, they're a bunch of Coinbase alumni, and it's really fantastic to kind of see like this, you know, Coinbase mafia kind of coming together to build all this cool tech. I mean,
the Degen cabal.
Yeah, the Degen cabal, exactly. Like it's really impressive. I mean, they've been like just locked in and building for the last several years, and it's amazing to see their success recently. You know, more power to them. I think they're going to grow to millions of users, and you know, it'll be exciting to see if they can flip X or Twitter someday. You know. That'd be pretty incredible.
So you kind of, it is possible. You kind of mentioned it, but is the plans for then Moonwell to almost have like, you know, help to grow a community over there and even build frames where you could have your whole in governance on, you know, in your social media app that you use every day, or, you know, with your community? Or how do you guys interact with your community most, I guess?
Yeah, so we really interact with our community most on X, Twitter probably today, but we've started, you know, broadcasting a lot of our content on Warpcast and on, you know, Farcaster as well. But I think in general, the reason why I'm pretty passionate about using frames for governance is because when governance proposals go live, you know, we have a governance facilitator called Boardroom that does an incredible job of kind of like keeping our community informed. They do like monthly governance calls in Discord, keep them informed about like what's coming up to vote on, what upgrades are happening, you know, important stuff. But I think the challenge we have in governance is like typically only a few hundred people might vote on a given proposal.
Yeah.
But if we were able to just kind of like imagine you get a tweet, you see a tweet, or in this case, like a warp or whatever, or cast, whatever, right? In Warpcast saying, like, reminding you to vote, but you can just vote right there without having to like load our app and like, you know, pull out your ledger or whatever. I feel like that would really increase governance participation. So we can get thousands of people voting on every proposal. And then we're also thinking about like ways we can reward people for voting, whether it's just things like, you know, prizes to give out, because really the more governance participation we get, the stronger our community becomes, because, you know, token holders have the ability to upgrade the protocol and like, you know, make it better. And so that's what we're excited about.
Here's an idea, right? So you talk about the frames, right? So, and this is the whole thing, because, right, some people just stake, right? They'll go on a platform like I do, like I stake on Moonwell. I may only check that once a week, maybe once, you know, some people maybe only check once a month because they're like, set it and forget it, like I'm fine. And they may not see these governance votes come through. Right. You got a community on Warpcast, you build the frame out, and when people vote and they successfully vote in the frame, because it can be verified in the frame, a bot then comes behind that person's post, as long as they comment something, and tips them in, say, Degen, tips them in, say, Aero, tips them in something else, their community token of choice. You know, right there you go. You have a way to then incentivize your community to stay engaged. And
like I said, cooking right now.
I'm saying frames.
I love it. Like, I love this idea, man. This is awesome.
Yeah. Frames are the future, and I see this in so many different communities that I'm in over there in the channels, and it's like it really does start to like break the governance models. You know, I would say the boring way of doing governance that you have now, with actually being able to incentivize with, you know, say a bigger community token like a Degen, or even something that the community creates themselves.
Absolutely, I love this idea. Yeah, and I think you're going to see lots of that. I mean, we've been giving out like NFTs to voters for quite a while, but I think doing this through frames just makes it like really easy to kind of like automate everything, make it social. Like, you know, maybe there's like some rare trade in your NFT that you get, and like, you know, because you were just like randomly selected as like, you know, one of 1,000 voters or something. There's cool stuff you could do.
Yeah. Definitely. Let's see. I mean, we are obviously coming up on the hour of the show. And so is there anything, I guess, that maybe we have not asked you about Moonwell, or it could be about Base, that you're excited about, want to talk about before we kind of close it out?
I mean, I guess the thing I would leave you with is just that, you know, we're really excited to be building in the Base ecosystem. We've been seeing an incredible amount of user growth in just the last few months, especially in just the last month. You know, we went from about just over 7,500 active wallets on Base and on January 1st, the new year, to almost 20,000 today. And so it's really incredible to see like the growth and like all the new users coming into the Moonwell community. And so I just want to thank everyone for, you know, being a part of the community, for using our app. We're always here to kind of listen to your feedback in Discord, and if you have, or even on Twitter, you know, if you have like ideas and suggestions of like how to make the app better or ways we could improve, we'd love to hear them. And you know, I just encourage people to go to moonwell.fi, check out our website, check out our app, and you know, get more Base and you know, start experimenting with Base. I feel like it's a great ecosystem, and we're just excited to be one of the first teams building in the space. And I think you're going to see a lot more people building in the space and building on Base in particular, because the developer experience is so good. So we're also really excited about just integrating with the best projects that are coming to Base. You know, more and more projects are coming to Base every day. I hear of new projects, for example, like liquid restaking tokens are coming, LRTs, you know, Eigenlayer. And everyone kind of sees the TVL growth and they're excited to be a part of it. So we're really excited to see kind of what people can build on top of Moonwell as well, because you can kind of integrate with us as like this DeFi primitive, right? So if you're building like a game and you know your users are using like maybe USDC to buy in-game items and things like that, like why not just also let them earn a little bit of interest instead of just holding the USDC in a wallet and not being able to do anything with it. So you know, if you're building a game or an NFT project or anything on Base, we'd love to talk to you and figure out ways we can help you integrate with Moonwell as like this DeFi Lego. And then also just super excited to be kind of building alongside the best builders in the space, like Jesse and the Aerodrome team and all the great teams on Base.
Yeah, I mean, I know, you know, for as a holder of Well and someone who's bullish on your all's you know, trajectory and where you guys are headed, I'd love to see some more staking options for some of the community tokens that are out there. Like I say, I do dabble in the meme community tokens, and so you know, that's one thing that I love about, you know, these platforms is, you know, you kind of saw it with Aerodrome. Aerodrome kind of started out kind of being, you know, not as many pairs, but then now, you know, because of its, you know, growth, you're seeing just pairs launched every single day. And so I'm hoping that that's coming for you guys, and we start to really see the synergies, you know, happen between not only just things that are on Base, but like you talked about earlier, being able to get tokens from OP and other various L2s and even other ecosystems. So it's definitely super exciting. And with how fast this space is moving, I know we're going to have you back on. I've actually talked to Alex at the last time we had him on after the show, and I actually want to get a Base roundtable episode going where we honestly just talk about, you know, all things Base, you know, and where we see the ecosystem heading. So we're obviously going to keep you in the loop of names for that episode that'll hopefully be coming out here in the next month or so. So if you're in the audience and you've enjoyed this one, be sure to hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe to The Next Block. Follow us on Twitter. Follow Luke on Twitter. Luke Youngblood is his @, and then also you can follow him on Warpcast if you're over there, and you can also follow the Moonwell tag that's on Warpcast as well. But great conversation, Luke. Obviously, you know there wasn't many questions. I think it's probably because you answered so many and you gave a lot of alpha that was even maybe outside of what we were going to ask. So thanks so much for that. And yeah, to everybody out there in the audience, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Thanks, guys. It was great to be here.
See you next week, episode 103. Until then.